Shalom, and welcome back to Bnei Noach Academy, Thoughts on the Torah. Please remember to hit the like button, to subscribe, and most importantly, to share this wisdom and inspiration with friends and family. When you look into the book of Exodus, chapter 16, verse 19, there the Torah describes in detail what took place after the Jews complained when they ran out of food. They ran out of bread. They were hungry. God said, don't worry, I'll provide food for you. And in fact, it describes how they went out and how they collected, each person collected, and when they came back home, they found to be the right amount that they needed for the sustenance of that day. And then Moses says to them in verse 19, let no one leave any of it over for morning, meaning, do not leave anything over for the next day. Tomorrow, God will provide. Don't worry. Don't worry about it. And in fact, the next verse tells us, verse 20, that there were those troublemakers who did not pay attention to what Moshe said, to what Moses instructed them. And they did leave over for the morning. And although this was such a pristine, perfect food that came directly from heaven, and it was so fresh, even regular food doesn't spoil so quickly. But it was rotted by the next morning, full of worms. In other words, God was disappointed with them and showed it to them by means of that manna, which is so sacred and so pure and so pristine, and yet it rotted so quickly. What is behind all of this? In other words, God gave them the manna every single day, of course, with the exception of the Sabbath, the seventh day of the week. On Friday, they got a double portion. But think about it. God is almighty. He is infinite. So if he's giving them bread from heaven, why not just give him once a week, once a month, maybe even once a year? Just give him food, and it should just remain fresh. I mean, there's nothing standing in his way, nothing that is limiting him to do it this way or that way. And then it just stays fresh. And every day they just eat from it, pick at it, and eat from it. And that's it. Maybe even storage wouldn't be an issue because it can be very small, very minute. It seems like this wasn't a lot. This didn't take up a lot of space. What was the need for this miracle, for the miracle to manifest itself in this manner that every single day, the portion of that day came down? The answer is God was training them. This was their basic training. These 40 years that they were in the desert was their training for when they're going to enter the Holy Land, for when they're going to get back to real, normal life. And in fact, how many times in the Torah does it instruct them that when you come to the land, you're going to plow, you're going to see the ground, you're going to harvest, and you're going to do this, and you're going to grind your wheat. And in other words, the Torah tells them the ultimate is the regular, normal day-to-day life, where one goes out to the fields, one goes out to the farms, one goes out to work, and one does everything one has to do in order to bring down God's blessings and to generate a living. But here was the training. And this is actually contrary to the way the human mind is wired. We're wired to always worried about what's going to be tomorrow, what's going to be after tomorrow. Am I going to have what to eat? Yes, I have now, but you got to save for a rainy day, which is actually true, by the way. You have to be responsible. But at the same time, what God was training them to do, and it took that much time, day after day after day after day for 40 years, to embed it in their minds, to literally reprogram their minds, to retrain it and to become second nature, that God will provide. Whatever you're eating today, don't worry about tomorrow. You have to be responsible about tomorrow, but don't be worried. And if God tells you directly, tomorrow I will provide for you, then he will provide for you. Think about it. None of us is ever worried if the sun's going to come up tomorrow. Why? Because first of all, we believe it. We see it. We've seen it so many times in our lives that the sun comes up day after day after day that we're not concerned about it. But there's another reason, if you think about it from the human psyche, because the sun doesn't really directly connect to my life. right? If the sun comes up or not, if I see the sun or not, I'm still alive. I still need to eat. I'm still hungry. I still need to breathe, and so on and so forth. But things that have much more of a closer connection to my needs, to my life, to my wants, that's where we become more concerned. And that's where, sadly, our belief goes down several notches. Our trust in God, unfortunately, is not as strong once the worry and the anxiety takes over. And this is the lesson for us. God provides every day. You have to be responsible. You need to save. You need to be fiscally, responsible, conservative even. But at the same time, one should not live in a manner that's full of panic and anxiety, worried about what's going to tomorrow. You have to be planned, but you don't have to be worried because, like he said here, today is today, and God will provide for tomorrow.